from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Getting the cotton crop planted.
I'm Charles Denny. Tennessee's cotton crop will be much smaller than first anticipated because of rainy weather this past spring.
An update from the fields of Tennessee where farmers face some struggles. Cattle prices continue to climb.
$2 was paid here, first by a regional and then by one of the majors.
How soon will it be before live cattle futures chase the cash? As Hurricane Beryl makes landfall and pushes inland, the latest on its trek and what it could bring over the next few days, right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer.
Ben's bins, please hold.
Yeah, Ben's has been busy all day.
Seems like no one can keep up with this new Z series. What did you all put in these seeds?
Science.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Happening right now, what remains of Hurricane Beryl is moving through the Mid-South and eastern Midwest. The storm is the first hurricane to make landfall in the U.S. this Atlantic hurricane season. And as Michael Yoshida reports, it brought with it damaging winds, extreme rainfall, and power outages.
I looked up and my roof was gone. It just went.
Terrifying moments for Texans living along the coast as Hurricane Beryl slams the state, carving a path inland.
The wind tunnel just went crazy. Stuff started flying off the walls, zinging around the house.
Hurricane-strength wind gusts reaching as high as 94 miles per hour in Freeport and knocking out power to more than 2 million customers in the state, according to PowerOutage.us.
The biggest issue is going to be Centerpoint in Texas, New Mexico, assessing how many homes and businesses are without power. And then our favorite people over the coming few days will be the linemen as they get out and bust their butts on getting power back to everyone.
Across the area, fallen trees, a flipped truck, and collapsed roofs. Houston firefighters rescued a man trapped in bed when a tree fell on the house. The storm surge and heavy rainfall flooding several interstates as crews rushed to perform high-water rescues for stranded drivers.
Are you okay, sir?
Yeah, I'm good. Please, Houstonians, anyone that can hear my voice, shelter in place. Shelter in place. We're in an emergency.
Houston Mayor John Whitmire calling on everyone to stay inside. He says the city is focused on emergency response and preparing for what comes next.
We will do an assessment. We will be opening up centers. The Red Cross is in contact with us.
Reporting for AgDay, I'm Michael Yoshida.
As more rain arrives, other areas are assessing the damage from flooding earlier this month in the northwest portion of the Corn Belt. Crop consultant Michael Cordonnier says there might be 0.5 to 1 million acres of corn lost due to that flooding. Now, he believes harvested acres will be 90.3% to 90.7% of plantings this year. That's down from the average of over 91%. And he says corn acres lost won't be replanted at this state. It's not over yet. 13 gauges along the Mississippi River are at major flood stage. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht joins us with the very latest on what areas could see heavy rains today from what's left of Beryl.
Yeah, the flooding potential is elevated where the remnants of Beryl go. We're limiting the severe weather and strong wind potential and just keeping the heavy rain potential around, both for our Tuesday and our Wednesday, up and down parts of Illinois, also into Missouri, as well as into Kentucky and also into Indiana. Now, this is on Tuesday. As the system works to the northeast, you'll see that 15 to 40% spread in through the Midwest, but also up to Pennsylvania and New York, with, again, the remnants of the system still taking a good 2 to 3 inches of rainfall with it from that tropical moisture. Again, that's the flooding potential coming up for your Wednesday, about 15 to 40 into Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, also into Pennsylvania and New York, up into the northeast, which will carry into Thursday and Friday as well. Relatively quiet, but we do have the chance, about a 5 to 15% chance of some flooding back into the Four Corner states. And Matt Nelson of Northeast Nebraska sharing a holiday tradition with us. His annual knee-high by the 4th of July picture, as you can see, it's well above that, more like head-high. Matt says he's been blessed with good weather so far. Hope it stays that way from one Matt to another Matt. I'll have more on your forecast looking at the weather maps coming up.
Despite flooding and hail over the last week, grain markets trading lower on the widespread rains expected from Beryl. That as USDA releases its latest crop condition ratings. USDA says the corn crop actually improved a bit this week. USDA reporting 68% is now rated good to excellent. That's up 1% from the previous week. As for soybeans, the same story. Now rated 68% good to excellent, a 1% improvement week over week. Cotton conditions dropping a bit though, with 45% of that crop now rated good to excellent. That's down 5% from the previous week. Grain prices struggling on Monday, but cattle sellers are eyeing fresh highs following the holiday week. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us. Michelle, some cattle sold for as high as $2 a pound. Where did those sales take place?
The northern cattle feeding areas continue to hit record highs at that $2 mark that you mentioned. But the 5-area weighted average was also a record for the 5th straight week at 197.09. And we're not even into the tightest cattle numbers yet. So market analysts are optimistic about prices moving forward. The northern cash cattle trade record of $2 live hit on Friday was a benchmark that came earlier than expected by some market analysts, and an indication of just how tight cattle inventory really is in the north.
$2 was paid here first by a regional and then by one of the majors. I know from firsthand experience that the cattle that were sold to that major, because they're mine, are going today. They were sold Friday.
The north has traded premium to the south for several months now, and that was true again last week, with the south at 190 live, mostly steady. Quimma says northern cattle producers have significant leverage because they've stayed current.
Now, this is the time of year when we'd be in the heart of our calf front, and we've got show lists that are half or less of what they normally are. And the cattle that are on the show list are very fat. Sounds like 2014, right? Selling everything with a tailhead and a brisket. So futures continue to lag at a discount like they did in 2014, anticipating that someplace here something's going to happen and the market will come off of these record highs. But in the meanwhile, we've got leverage.
And that's even with record dress carcass weights, which are 29 pounds over a year ago. So he thinks it's just a matter of time before the live cattle futures chase the cash.
Long term, I've been very friendly to the market and I've been saying that really the tight numbers, in my opinion, aren't until late fourth quarter and first quarter of next year. And I haven't changed my mind there.
And that means live cattle futures could soon take out the record highs set back in September of 2023. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. A 4th case of avian flu in humans has now been confirmed in the U.S. The Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment confirming the case in an adult male. They report he had mild symptoms, reporting only pink eye. They say he is an employee at a dairy farm in the northeastern part of the state and had direct exposure to dairy cattle infected with H5N1. Now, health officials continue to say the risk worldwide is low to humans, and there's no evidence right now of any human-to-human transmission. As for the virus in cattle, USDA is now reporting 140 total cases in herds, still in 12 states. Following its approval from state regulators, a new report says Summit Carbon Solutions plans to expand its Iowa pipeline by 50%. Now, that's according to the Iowa Capitol Dispatch. It says the company is proposing new public informational meetings for 23 counties starting in late August. Now, those meetings must be held in the affected counties before it can start negotiating with landowners for pipeline easements. Adding 14 additional ethanol plants would grow the size of the system by roughly 340 miles in Iowa, or increase the size of the project by about 50%. Summit Carbon Solutions is working to build a pipeline that transports CO2 from ethanol facilities to underground storage in North Dakota. Now, while the project has received permit approval in Iowa, it continues to work on permits in the Dakotas. Front month corn futures fall to their lowest mark in nearly 4 years, while D's corn tries to stay above $4. We'll talk markets coming up next. And later, cotton farmers in Tennessee have had a rough start to the growing season. We'll check in on the crop today in the country. Corn futures continuing to pull back, facing further selling pressure to start the week, now at their lowest levels since November of 2020. AgDay's Michelle Rook, let us know if better news is on the horizon in markets now.
Well, a down day in grain and livestock futures trade on Monday. Brian Grady with Pro Farmer is back with analysis. Well, the grain trade, let's talk about that first. It felt like a risk-off day. some of that coming from weather and some of these rains in the eastern Corn Belt, Brian?
Yeah, just a complete washout, Michelle. So we had fundamental factors, the rains that you mentioned. Some of the drier areas in the southern and eastern Corn Belt got some decent rains last week, and then remnants of Hurricane Beryl are expected to bring more this week. And so that's a negative factor. Generally mild conditions from a temperature perspective. We will see some heat build later in the week and into next week, but nothing excessive by any means. And so the traders are looking at it as generally favorable conditions moving forward. You throw in pretty broad-based selling across the commodity sector today, and technical sell-off, and it just turned into a real ugly start to the week.
And very disheartening in the grains, considering we had some bullish weekly key reversals last week in the grains.
Historically, the day after, right after the 4th of July, typically either accelerates the current trend or reverses it. And last Friday's price action suggested that maybe we would reverse out of it, but Monday's trade definitely, wiped all of that out and then some.
No doubt. Plus, you have the report coming up on Friday, and USDA obviously has to reconcile some of the numbers we got out of quarterly stocks and acreage, right? That's a concern?
Yeah, so June 1 stocks were bigger than expected. So that'll go into the old crop balance sheets for corn and soybeans, especially for corn there. And then when you look at the new crop balance sheets, we'll get the June acreage figures. So that'll be up for corn as well. So we're going to see corn ending stocks build both on the old crop balance sheet and the new crop balance sheet.
No doubt. And then we also saw cattle market lower despite the fact that we had some record cash trade. So why did futures not follow, Brian?
Well, so the futures that did trade to the upside early on, but boy, once the buyer interest dried up and turned lower, then we saw those outside market influences, that broad-based sell-off across the commodities really kick in, and cattle futures turned in an ugly performance.
Thanks so much for joining us. Brian Grady with Pro Farmer. We'll have more AgDay coming up. Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
Yeah, the precipitation outlook through the 13th and the 17th starts to work, and that tropical moisture in and out of the United States. Still hanging on to a wetter than normal pattern back into the East Coast, up to the Northeast, and then wetter than normal back into the Four Corners. Still dry and hot back up here to the Northwest. In fact, we're going to look at that a little bit more detail. Now, the jet stream, I got this going out nearly 10 days. So you can see the overall pattern as we go deeper into July and start to wrap things up. So again, this is a jet stream on Tuesday and into Wednesday. And you see this trough digging through that also has the influences of some tropical moisture. Remember earlier we looked at the flooding potential, including parts of the Midwest up here towards the Northeast as we get into Thursday and Friday. But this isn't going to be around all that long. By this weekend, we lose the influence of the trough and then really dig in with another ridge of high pressure. So where the heat has been, it will stay. Where that dry air has been, it will stay. And where I'm looking is back up here towards the West Coast and also the Northwest, with this ridge of high pressure dominating 2/3 of the United States. And really, in terms of cooling or rain chances, what you hope for in this situation is some energy kind of working down from the north to the south. But this ridge is going to be so strong. Again, this is towards the end of the weekend and into next week, that a lot of that energy is going to have trouble working through the United States, bringing widespread showers and rain to the United States. Again, there's the jet stream on Sunday. A little bit of a trough. This energy right here is going to work through Minnesota, Wisconsin, and then back up to the north and to the northeast. So some cooler temperatures, but it'll be short-lived as this ridge once again dominates parts of the United States. We'll start off with Bruce, Illinois, high around 76 degrees. Bruce, Mississippi, got some morning showers, high around 88 degrees. What do you think's next? What's next? Bruce, North Dakota, evening thunderstorms, high of 80 degrees.
There's a lot to consider when buying new equipment. Up next, Machinery Pete has his own thoughts on what to think about when making that decision. And later, the cotton growing season in Tennessee has been a real mess. We'll check in on how things are progressing today in the country. There's something a lot of people don't consider when buying used ag equipment, but Machinery Pete says you should consider more than just the price.
Hey folks, I want to talk about something really important today. Something that surprisingly just isn't talked about. But over my 34 and a half years tracking the used farm equipment market every day, there's one of the main truths that I've found is that whether you realize it or not, when you're buying a piece of used equipment, you're actually also somewhat buying the seller of that piece of used equipment. Now think back over all your years of farming in your local area. When a really good farmer would retire, or maybe an estate sale, how were prices on that auction? Right? Premium, as there should be. Well, that was Bob's combine. You know, took great care of his stuff. Maybe Bob was a pillar of the community, church council, school board involved, helping his neighbors. That premium always made sense, and our Machinery Pete auction data proved it over the years on those good farm auctions. Well, now consider the day and age we live in now. Online bidding, online-only auctions. It's not like the old days where your potential buyer could be maybe from 2, 3, maybe 4 hours away. Now your potential buyers are 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 states away, maybe a different country. But they got to know about the item coming up on your auction or that you're selling privately. And even more importantly, the missed opportunity as sellers, whether that's a private seller or an auction company or even dealers right now, not kind of telling the story a little bit about the seller and having the seller stand by the item and just simply talk about it. And I ain't talking fancy Hollywood video here. I'm just talking about you standing by your combine, your tractor, your planter, telling folks about it, warts and all. Now, you might say, well, Pete, that sounds kind of stupid. Well, it ain't stupid. It's dollars in your pocket as a seller. Here's an example. June 26th auction a couple weeks ago up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, for a retirement auction for Ken and Bruce Judkins. Great guys, brothers up there, sale by Sheraton Realty and Auction. We did a Machinery Pete YouTube video preview of the sale. There's Bruce standing by his 2010 Case H 8120 combine. Now, Bruce was very proud of his combine. He had his Case H shirt on. Great guy. How did it sell? Went for $85,800. How much of a premium was that? Well, the average auction price on the previous 27 8110 sold the last 18 months was $58,408. Seeing Bruce stand by his combine, smile, and talk about it, very powerful. Keep this in mind, folks, you know, whether you're going to be selling something private or at auction down the road.
All right, thanks, Pete. Well, the nation's cotton crop is off and growing. Up next, we'll check in on the season in Tennessee, where farmers have had less than ideal conditions in the country. USDA says Tennessee farmers planted 300,000 acres of cotton in 2024, and while the crop is in the ground right now, Charles Denny with the University of Tennessee reports the weather has been less than ideal for producers.
For producer Johnny Dodson, his opportunity to plant cotton was washed away by day after day of heavy rains, and now he'll grow about a third less of the crop than originally planned.
We wait till the 1st of May to try to start planting when the soils are warm. But unfortunately, the weatherman hadn't cooperated with all of these little low pressure systems moving through and a constant threat of rain and some big rains.
Soybeans and corn you can plant early, late, or somewhere in between. But with cotton, the timing is a little trickier. UT Institute of Agriculture cotton specialist Tyson Raper calls this one of the most challenging years in decades to plant cotton. Usually, farmers want moisture, but too much rain in spring keeps planters out of muddy fields, and the crop never gets put in the ground to begin with.
And every opportunity we had in May, we saw the window open just very, very slightly and then slam shut with a big rainfall event. We don't like planting in front of big rainfall events, so it's been a limited window for most guys in West Tennessee.
There are deadlines that they have to meet for insurance purposes. A lot of these guys have just done this their whole life, and they know when too late is too late for their farm. They understand their land.
Farmers need to produce something, so soybeans will replace cotton in many fields. But producers wanted cotton here for crop rotation and variety in their operations. Typical agriculture: start with a plan, know you have to be flexible, and then adapt. This is Charles Denny reporting.
All right, thanks, Charles. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day on Farm Country.